Night falls over a quiet parking lot.
Two patrol cars arrive, red and blue lights sweeping across a sleek black sedan. Inside sits Isaiah Reed, early 30s, calm, collected, a black man by mere optics, but an undercover federal agent in reality. Officer Barnes slams on the hood. "You in the car. Step out." The voice cracks with entitlement.
Isaiah's eyes widen, but he remains seated. Moments stretch as his face holds a quiet storm, no panic.
The door creaks. Another cop grips the handle.
Now, the command sharpens. Isaiah finally speaks measured. "I'm FBI. Agent Isaiah Reed. This traffic stop is under federal supervision."
"I have ID." Silence.
Confusion. The power dynamic flips in a heartbeat.
The cops freeze. One stammers. "You."
"You're what?" We don't rush. We linger on that moment. Perception shattered. Institutions colliding. It's not just confrontation, it's confrontation with consequence.
And it begins here. We'll rewind time to explore how Isaiah came to this charge exchange and why it matters far beyond one parking lot. Rewinding to years. Isaiah grew up in a city where black men were routinely stopped facing suspicion before speaking, frisked before proving who they are. Asherton Gardens, underfunded schools, elevated police prisons.
His father imprisoned. His mother worked 2 jobs. Conversations at home. Stay safe. Don't make waves. He internalized. Warnings don't aim to high. But Isaiah refused to stay invisible.
At 18, he joined ROTC. Later, he earned a full scholarship to a top-tier university studying criminal justice. He watched documentaries. Fred Hampton, Elaine Brown, the Black Panthers' work to demand dignity and safety.
He understood that policing,
Black communities required accountability from within, not just protest. By mid-20s, he joined the FBI not for power, but to bridge that divide.
in training, he wrote an essay. "I carry the weight of streets that don't see me," and in the field, he dedicated himself to undercover work aimed at exposing trafficking networks, not to boast, but to save lives and to disrupt systems that prey on communities that need protection the most. But every badge is a double-edged sword in a black man's hands.
And every undercover assignment could end in misunderstanding or worse. One April night, Isaiah's task: infiltrate a local gang trafficking opioid pills planned a controlled buy. Timed with 2 marked local patrols. Mission successful. He parked the sedan at 11 p.m., just off the scene, his gear quietly stashed under the seat.
No noise.
No spotlight.
His phone recorded every moment. That's when the patrol cars pulled in behind him. Lights humble to flashes. Barnes and Lopez step out. Isaiah watches calm. License registration. Barnes demands. Isaiah complies. Hands on the wheel. No sudden moves. But Barnes's face tightens. "You fit a suspect description." Lopez steps closer. Hand on door. Isaiah leans back. He whispers, "Federal." Field agent. Barnes grabs at his belt.
Isaiah doesn't flinch.
Door yanks open.
He's pulled halfway out, then Agent Reed FBI. Badge flashes.
Lopez freezes. Barnes's jaw drops. Isaiah's phone camera catches his panic. He remains steady. "Body cam live. You violated 4th Amendment rights. You may file me. This footage will be submitted." Chaos blooms. Barnes stutters. We didn't know." Isaiah calmly responds, "You never asked." If Isaiah's experience resonates, if you've ever been stopped because of your skin or felt judged before being heard, like, subscribe, and share your story in the comments. What moment brought you face to face with authority, and how did you reclaim your dignity? This space is for voices rising above stereotypes. Join the movement. Let's amplify stories and build change from within. Barnes's voice cracks. He's lying. He can't be. Lopez's face drains color. Isaiah remains composed. He keeps the badge out steady, unflinching. Cameras rolling. Barnes attempts backtrack. "We're sorry, Agent Reed." "We." Isaiah cuts him off. "Sorry isn't enough. You pulled me forcibly. You tried to search without cause. Lopez drops his clipboard. Barnes's nostrils flare.
Isaiah continues. Legal precedent recognizes video evidence. Agent Reed.
This is public record. Silence settles. Barnes backs away, rage suppressed.
Lopez attempts small talk. We thought you were a suspect. Isaiah nods. That's exactly the point. The badge footage. The interior shot. Isaiah's phone rolling.
The subtle hand tremble of Barnes. The flash of regret in Lopez's
eyes. The rawness of institutional failure stopped by assumption. With Isaiah walking away, lights of patrol cars flicker red or of red of isolated silhouette. The crowd of authority behind him fading from view. But the weight remains. Barnes and Lopez thought justice was theirs, but they nearly destroyed it by assuming control over a black man who was an agent and a fellow public servant. Isaiah did not shout. He held firm. Dignity doesn't demand shouting, it demands composure under pressure, and without his phone recording, this story could have been theirs to write. In a world where truth is questioned, evidence is radical. But here's the deeper question. What
if Isaiah was not FBI? What if he was a young black man with no credentials pulled? Humiliated, maybe worse. That reality is real. That fear is real. Knowing the system nearly failed a man born to serve to raise a larger alarm, authority without accountability is dangerous. It's not about intention, it's about impact. And impact can be fatal. Isaiah leaves the lot and heads home, but the real reckoning begins.
Internal Affairs has been notified.
The footage is submitted. Barnes and Lopez await interviews, but in the precinct, whispers spread. Some veterans question Isaiah's visibility in the community. He made us look bad, they murmur. Some supervisors worry. Does he disrupt station culture? At the same time, Isaiah's community outreach program is gaining traction. He's set to conduct mandatory training for patrol officers in black neighborhoods. Change from within, but there's resistance. Agents in his office warn. Not everyone wants reform. Be careful. Threats not to his life, but to his career. Moreover, the night Isaiah Reed handed over that footage, the real battle began. Internal Affairs had been notified. Barnes and Lopez were now under investigation.
But this wasn't just about a traffic stop gone wrong. It was a power struggle shaking the very core of law enforcement and community trust. Isaiah.
He was caught in the crossfire. Isaiah sat alone in a sterile interrogation room.
The cold hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. 2 Internal Affairs investigators faced him, clipboard and pens at the ready. Agent Reed. One began, eye scanning the video on a tablet. Your footage contradicts Officer Barnes' report.
Barnes claims you were uncooperative, non-compliant. Isaiah's voice was calm, measured. The video shows exactly what happened. No resistance, no cause for force. The lead investigator's brow furrowed.
Officers say you did not
immediately identify yourself and that they feared for their safety. Isaiah shook his head firm. I clearly stated my identity, but you must understand when you escalate with force before asking questions, you increase danger unnecessarily. The investigator's eyes lingered on Isaiah's face.
There was something in that quiet defiance that unsettled them. Outside the room, whispers grew louder. Is this guy really FBI?
Can we trust him? Isaiah could feel the currents shifting. This wasn't just an investigation.
It was a tested trial by the very institution meant to serve justice. Days
passed, and the shift inside the precinct was unmistakable.
Emails to his superiors went unanswered. Training sessions he'd scheduled to teach patrol officers about racial bias and community engagement were suddenly cancelled with vague explanations. Budget cuts, scheduling conflicts.
Isaiah was isolated in meetings, his ideas dismissed as too radical. One afternoon, a supervisor pulled him aside with a tight smile.
Agent Reed, you're making waves. Politics don't like waves. A quiet voice in the hallway whispered.
Keep your head down, or you won't last here. Threats weren't direct, they didn't have to be. A single anonymous text said it all. Stop stirring trouble, or we'll make sure your FBI career ends here. Isaiah stared at the message, fists clenched. The system was closing in, community rises in support, but outside those precinct walls, Isaiah's story ignited a fire. Social media exploded with hashtags. #justice for Isaiah trended nationwide. Local activists organized town halls.
Black leaders and allies flooded calls to police oversight boards demanding accountability. During a packed community forum, Isaiah stood tall, his voice steady but passionate. I didn't do this for fame or headlines. I did this because it's
not right. If this could happen to me, a trained federal agent, it could happen to anyone. A mother stood, tears shining in her eyes.
My son could be that man.
We need change, and we need it now.
The room erupted in applause. Pressure mounted on the precinct. They couldn't pretend this wasn't happening. Just when Isaiah felt the system closing ranks, a new ally appeared. Officer Daniels, a young black cop new to the force, reached out with shaky courage. I've seen what Barnes and Lopez do behind the scenes, Daniels whispered on a secure line. They've got a history fabricating reports, planting evidence to cover up misconduct. Isaiah listened, heart pounding. Daniels sent encrypted clips audio of Barnes mocking black citizens. Footage of officers joking about taking down troublemakers.
This was no isolated incident. This was corruption, systemic and ugly. Isaiah turned to Eye again, hoping this new evidence would crack the case wide open. But the room remained cold. We'll review, they said. Fear and hesitation hung thick in the air. The retaliation came swiftly. Barnes and Lopez filed counter-complaints accusing Isaiah of insubordination, misuse of authority, even harassment. The FBI opened a quiet internal review. Isaiah's security clearance was questioned. He was pulled off key undercover assignments in a tense meeting. Supervisors warned, drop this or your career here is over. Isaiah's voice trembled, but his eyes burned with resolve. I'm not the problem. Behind the scenes, a power play unfolded. The police union mobilized, fiercely defending Barnes and Lopez. The mayor's office pressured IE to quietly close the case. City council members exchanged guarded words. Community activists threatened protests, demanding transparency. Isaiah's story had become a flashpoint, a symbol of the deep fractures in policing and justice. When the walls closed in, a quiet force emerged. Detective Marlene Harris, a seasoned black woman with 20 years on the force, reached out in a dimly lit coffee shop. She slid a thick folder across the table. I've seen what you're fighting against, she said softly. This file contains reports ignored, complaints buried.
We're not alone. Isaiah flipped through the documents, memos, internal
emails, anonymous complaints detailing decades of misconduct. This is systemic, Marlene said. But together, we can expose it, preparing for public exposure with renewed hope. Isaiah's team prepared to go public. They contacted trusted journalists. A press conference was planned. Barnes and Lopez scrambled, lawyers at their side, trying to contain the damage. City officials braced for fallout. The public demanded answers. Isaiah prepared to testify, knowing everything was on the line. But days before the big reveal, dark forces moved. Isaiah's car was tailed on his way home. Strange calls buzzed his phone, hacked messages, and unexplained silences. The file Detective Harris had given him vanished from his office locker. Security footage from the FBI archives disappeared. Someone was erasing the truth fast. Then came the final message. Cold and clear. Back off. This is your last warning. Isaiah's heart pounded as he looked out his window, streetlights flickering. A shadow lurking just beyond the curb. What happens next? Will Isaiah's courage bring justice, or will the system silence the man who dared speak truth? If his fight moves you, subscribe and hit the bell.
Share this story because voices united are voices heard. Comment below. What truth must come to light in your community? How do you stand when authority crosses the line?
Part 2 is coming where betrayal, courage, and justice collide. Stay tuned. If you found truth in Isaiah's story, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Part 2 is coming soon.
Share this video with someone who needs to.
Hear that dignity and documentation matter. Let's build awareness, accountability, and community through stories like this.